Ever since the start of Overwatch beta tournaments in November 2015, esports has never been the same.
One of the most team play-focused major esports of all time had been born, drawing in players from all kinds of FPS looking for a new opportunity to compete. From weekly go-to gamers to MLGs in Apex to finally Overwatch League and its culmination in Season 4. Overwatch and its esports scene has evolved. Riding the waves, lives were moved just physically across continents, but emotionally as the scene and its actors matured. For example, take Fleta, an individual who suffered through several seasons of OGN's Apex, losing the vast majority of his matches with his team Flashlucks. 5 years later, and he has won every major trophy, both individually and with his team, the Shanghai Dragons, a franchise that in itself once was down as one of the worst teams in modern competition, now turned arguably the second most successful organization in Overwatch of all time. Overwatch history has become indivisible from the history of the Dragons, not just during the lowest lows of Season 1 and highest highs of Season 4, but the events in between. Who broke the spell of GOAT's dominance, winning Season 2 Stage 3, building on the idea that playing to your own strength wasn't just a viable, but a winning strategy in Overwatch? Who believed in talent at a time when their results weren't cashing in on their potential, only to eventually form the best starting six of all time, made by a majority of players who were at some point in their career believed to be declining? Who, if not the Shanghai Dragons? Can you soak in the sonder as you realize that most other teams in this year's playoffs had similarly complex stories of metamorphosis? I mean, consider the story of the Dallas Fuel, a franchise that was meant to play for the title from Season 1 onwards, but took 4 full seasons to do so. What about the San Francisco Shock, the most dominant Overwatch team of all time looking for their three-peat? Or the Fusion, yearning for a huge victory since their inception? With all those storylines entwining and weaving the tapestry of Season 4, the playoffs delivered in all aspects but one pesky curse. The Overwatch League finals were, once again, let's say, anticlimactic. At least the Atlanta boys seem to have fun. And of course, so did we during the rest of the playoffs. The first banger of a series came at the end of day 1 between the Atlanta Reign and the Chengdu Hunters. Despite ping-ponging each other's map picks back and forth until Chengdu broke the pattern, the series still felt like the Hunters were almost relearning how to play into rush compositions, while having Atlanta's number whenever they tried their hand at dive. With a tinge of Season 1 flavor, the Hunters even tried their luck with Junkrat, with mixed results. Coming down to the final map, the match became quite close, not least due to Late Young performing a ritual of sorts, sacrificing his Mac repeatedly to summon MVP Demon Leaf. And then eventually, Chengdu knocked Atlanta down to the lower bracket, in which the Reign would become the Grim Reaper of the North American teams, dealing the killing blow to every single NA team season. And then, with the exception of the Justice match against the Reign, every single series in the lower bracket would turn into a banger for survival, with the Shock fighting for their dear life to keep the hope for a potential three-peat. Going the full distance with the Fusion and the Hunters, the team around Coach Krusty flashed some magic of old, winning fights they shouldn't and maintaining a strong mental fortitude throughout those series. I have to say, especially Super played his heart out, putting it all in one basket in what might have been his last season as a professional player, as he had previously already talked about retirement before the season start. The way in which he found several high-value ultimates against top-tier main tanker position was, I think it's fair to say, the reason why some of those matches were won, or why the series against the Reign even became close. Honestly, for my money, one of the biggest upsets in playoffs was the Shock beating the Hunters, who were by many seen to be the second or third best team in the playoffs, given the strength of their preferred composition that eventually for Shanghai even won the title. I mean, look, watching the performances of the Hunters and Dragons, I couldn't help but think of a quote by Seoul Dynasty's COO Arnold Her, who, unrelated to the Overwatch League playoffs and already in summer, tweeted, "Sometimes in esports, I feel like more than half the key to winning a championship is to not implode on the way there." Okay, follow me here and consider the following contrast. Rather publicly, in the aftermath of the playoffs, head coach of the Chengdu Hunters, Ray, had come out and spoke about Yveltal's attitude issues. As a result, the Hunters had to field Nisha, and also replacing Monk, switching their entire backline just for the playoffs. Yveltal had low-key, at least statistically, been one of the best performing main supports in the league. And while Nisha is a fine replacement, it's hard to believe that this inner discord didn't contribute towards the Hunters' decline of form. Now, on the other hand, you have the Dragons, who wisely during Countdown Cup took out the sandbags as a maintenance measure to peak when it mattered the most, only losing 2 maps for their entire playoff run in a season as stacked as this one. In this, Moon put up a masterclass of knowing his team's limits, correctly prioritizing the players over Countdown Cup fame. Moreover, the process by which he assembled this team had been built on meticulous planning and forming lasting bonds with his players. Okay, take for instance the choice of Fate as a main tank starter, after having to replace a tank as great as Fearless. This move goes all the way back to 2016 in Moon's and Fate's first professional team Mighty AOD. The pair met again in the inaugural season of the Overwatch League on the Valiant, which they celebrated great success in. Sure, they eventually split paths with Fate joining Florida and Moon joining Team CC, but trusting each other absolutely never waned. As a result of this trust, Fate arguably became the best performing main tank in Season 4, and was able to come back from having been outplayed by Fearless in Melee to gapping him on Wrecking Ball in their other matches. I think one could even argue that Fate's selfless playstyle rearranged resources within the team enough to allow their other superstar players to shine, and thus improve the Dragons after Fearless' departure. I mean, come on. The Dragons of Season 4 had a legitimate case for every single one of their starting 6 players to be a role star. Whether that is Noise from Overwatch being so heavily team-reliant and making everyone on the winningest team shine, or an actual statement for a super team, we will likely never be able to answer. What we can do instead is marvel at a team that won the season, won 2 stages, and was runner-up in the 3rd. A feat that previously only the Shock had achieved. I mean, what a comeback story to the Dragon lineage, isn't it?